Salisbury Plain in southern England. 2500 BC. At the same time as the pyramids in Egypt are under construction, workers here complete the outer circle of Stonehenge. They haul huge rocks, some weighing up to 45 tons, across rough terrain. They work each granite-like stone into shape, then pull them upright to form the great stone circle. Grimerica.
6,000 years ago, the prairies were so hot that hardly anybody lived here. There are not many artifacts on the plains from 6,000 years ago, so people figured they moved to the mountains where it was cooler.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We're going to be chatting with Gordon Freeman. Is that right? A little bit later.
That's right.
About Alberta's Stonehenge. He's from Edmonton, I think, so he's pretty close to the igloo, a few hours away, a few hours north. But first, as always, Fruity Graham. How's it going, buddy?
Come on, but hello?
You can thank Not Morgan for that.
Thanks, Not Morgan. I haven't listened to the episode yet, so I don't even want to hear about it. All the G words you just got and you had to use fruity?
It's a tribute. He'll get it.
Is
right
it?
away.
I'll
He'll
get
laugh.
it? I'll get it?
You won't. He will. You'll get it too.
So yeah, we have Gordon Freeman coming on, and what really surprised me about his book, besides the quality of it, was how much he got into Stonehenge and that site in Wales, the Fusilli Mountains, I think it was called. So he went deep into Stonehenge as well.
Like
Fascinating stuff.
Like the pasta?
I don't know. Why am I cutting out? What's going on?
I don't know.
Producer, help me out here, buddy.
Talk louder, boy.
Then I blow the mic and you give me shit. I can't win.
You can't win till you're perfect. Till I've molded you into the perfect podcaster.
Yeah, right. With
You're
all
not
that fucking
close.
trickster negative feedback.
Trickster? Me?
Yeah.
It's-
Thanks to Not
It's
Morgan
negative,
for that one,
it's
too.
negative reinforcement.
Oh, yeah, that's just what I need.
So what do you got for me, buddy, after a hiatus?
Oh, well, I've
So
got
you
some...
got sheets over there, you got printouts, whole workstation.
Yeah.
Look at all the work you do. Who
I
knew?
do. I do a lot. Look at this. So I've got some leftover business from last week, actually.
Leftover business
Yeah.
for more viewing? The people that guess the Eiffel Tower?
Oh, but this one's kind of not relevant to people yet. Shit. It is kind of funny, though. You know, we had that chat with Matt Swain we recorded with the other day.
That's not relevant yet, though. That's next
Should
week.
I wait then?
I'd save it for next week, probably.
For
During
when
our
we
Matt
publish that?
Swain
Okay,
chat.
okay, I'll leave that one. Damn. So last week we did do our remote viewing exercise. Did you catch that email that I forwarded you that I missed?
Yeah.
Fuck, eh?
2 people picked Eiffel Tower.
I know. Can you believe it? So I want to apologize to Mark J. He sent me a nice email, actually, thanking me for being so respectful and not negative about his orb sightings.
But I wasn't negative, was I?
No,
Oh,
I never said you were. Look at how
Okay.
self-conscious over there. So he says, I did a remote viewing census at work today, and most everyone did it, but the younger workers were all freaked out, so they chose not to do it. I have the following answers. 1 chose Stonehenge, 1 vote for Mount Fuji, 1 vote for Taj Mahal, 2 votes for the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and 1 vote for the north coast of Japan. So,
Ooh, and I saw it by Japan, too. That's 3 people up in the Japan area.
oh wow.
Watch the Japan area, motherfuckers. Shit
Something's
is going to
going
go
on.
down.
So anyways, 2 people voted the Eiffel Tower, and I missed that, and the result was the Eiffel Tower, so yeah.
I don't trust you.
You can see the original date on the email and
could've-
all that. I
you
missed
could've-
it all. I didn't think it was about, I thought it was an Orange Orb email. I didn't realize it was about the...
Really dropped the ball.
Yeah, June 9th.
What's his name again?
Mark.
Mark?
Yeah.
Maybe Mark won't be such a Graham fan now. He really blew his fucking remote viewing thunder.
Anyways, you can congratulate those two people for getting the answer right on the money. Another listener got it pretty close too. Actually, he talked about tall spires and the arch.
The golden arches?
No.
Oh.
So,
Profound UFO quote of the week.
Trickster over there tries to surprise me with the UFO quote of the week. And I'm ready to go though. So here we had a number of objects seen coming across in the North Sea on coastal radar. It looked like a Russian mistake. Jet aircraft were scrambled. The objects were traveling at quite impossible speeds, like 4,000 to 5,000 miles per hour, and then came to an abrupt halt near to one of those stations not very up high. Jet aircraft picked them up on aircraft radar. The objects then simply made rings around them. Inevitably, this led to the sort of inquiry which you would put in hand if you had any military responsibilities. Had something gone wrong with ground radar or with aircraft radar? Were experienced pilots going out of their minds? Were people having fantasies? We had to investigate cases of that kind. Over the years, although there were not an enormous number of such cases, there were a sufficient number to persuade me and a number of air staff friends with whom I had to work with that something was going on, sporadically in British airspace, which we could not explain. But we did not particularly want to make public statements about that, not for something that we had no explanation. That's from Ralph Noyes, senior official with the British Air Ministry, retired as Under Secretary of State in 1977.
That was a good long one.
Yeah.
I like it better when you do the long one. It makes it worth it.
That's what she said.
Good one. Touche.
I had a lot of synchronicities come in last week.
Ooh.
I'm a rambling Graham with synchronicities all over the web. And Aaron is skeptical about everyone and don't believe it yet.
So this will be the last batch of judgments from Igloo 2.0.
Oh, judgments. Yeah. So this is from Renee DeFazio, one of our past guests.
Ooh.
Yes. And one of our favorite authors. Hey guys,
Absolutely.
Hope life is treating you well. I listened to Grimerica last night and had a synchronicity happen as I define it. The uncanny, unexpected, and often numinous collision of the inner and outer worlds at a precise moment in time. They are sporadic, infrequent, and usually serve to jolt a person out of their ordinary mental consciousness to briefly experience the interconnected reality. What a great definition.
Yeah.
I was listening to the new show, number 119, last night on consciousness, which I thought was ironic. Strange only listening to one Grimerica show a night now that I've caught up. You guys are better than all the other podcasters. Thanks, buddy. At 2:22 a.m., the phone at work rings and it's my wife, Tamara, who woke out of the blue, saw that it was 2:22 a.m. and called, which she rarely does. We have begun to watch and listen for synchronicities as we think and feel. It is the way in which the universe speaks, and one of those methods is through numerology. 222 as defined as our thoughts aligning with the truth. For example, if you have thought about quitting your job and are daydreaming about what you would really prefer to do instead, you will receive 222 as confirmation of the ideas you have aligned with your soul's purpose in this lifetime. So, when the phone rang, I pushed pause on my iPod, and afterwards, when we hung up, I put my earbuds back and pressed play, and at that very second, you guys started reading my email. Not one word from the previous story was included. Needless to say, I called Tamara back because we had been struggling with the decision to quit my job of 35 years and start a grass painting company, which would allow us more time to write. After that experience, decision made. How does that one rate, Darren? Wait a minute, don't answer that. He says, P.S. The psilocybin show had me smiling from ear to ear. That sure brought back some good memories. Hope you had a great time, Graham, at the George Norrie show. If I could have, I would have been there with you with my Grimerica shirt on. Anyways, thanks, guys, and talk to you soon. Renee. One great love, one great adventure, one great year. That's the tagline from their book, One Great Year. And it's an awesome book. I got to say, it's like in my top 5 of all-time books.
So no rating?
And your wife says it's her absolute favorite.
True that. I still haven't read it. I'm going to read it, though. Maybe on my holiday. Waiting for the movie.
I wouldn't wait for the movie. Just read the book.
So I'm not rating? No rating?
I think they should do an audiobook with like Stefan Rudnicki, my favorite narrator, and Scott Brick.
Or what me and you will narrate it?
No.
We couldn't do it justice.
No.
Okay, I won't rate it.
No, you can rate that. It's good. I like that.
Yeah. I don't like the idea that he's going to quit his job based out of his Grimerica synchro, but he's going to get the 0.42.
I think it's a good one. When you click it on and it's been off for a while and it's just right at the right moment like that.
Yeah, maybe that's the easiest to manipulate. Okay, I'll give it an...
Wow, it sounds like you're going to say 9 there.
8.72. So that's an 8.3 with a 0.42.
I got a question for you.
No, I think that's too high.
Because I didn't bitch?
It's an 8.42.
What's grass painting?
No, I think that's like painting grass.
Painting with grass or painting grass?
Unless he means growing grass.
Grass painting. Oh, maybe that's a sign. Like a, what do you call it?
I think it's like you paint grass for festivals and shit.
Oh, is that what it is, you think?
Yeah.
We need the outside of our studio repainted. Our new studio.
I think it looks all right.
Yeah, all scratched up.
Fuck yeah.
Almost damaged beyond recognition.
That's good to go. It's good to go. We'll be ready for winter.
So I got another one. It's quite long, but I'd like to read it if we have time.
Sure. Got all the time in the world, buddy.
Do you want to do another jingle or? Okay.
I don't have the other one handy.
All right. So this is from Brennan. And he says, maybe a synchro.
Maybe. Tough start.
Okay, you got to pay attention now. This is a big one.
I'm always paying attention.
I'm a relatively new listener. I tuned in around episode 104 after hearing about you on the Grayling Report and have been a regular ever since. I like the way you put guests at ease, especially Richard Barrett and the recent roundtable, and the razzing back and forth that can be laugh out loud funny. Hell, your interview with John Harlowski interested me enough that I'm using up some of my vacation time to catch the 2015 IRVA conference in New Orleans at the end of the month. And I think IRVA, that's IRVA, I think that's probably International Remote Viewing Association or something like that.
Nice. Get some interviews.
Yeah. Send us a blog. Oh, actually, I think he mentioned that. But yeah, blog about it or give us an update and we'll do what we can to talk about it. So he says, I don't know if this qualifies as a synchronicity, but here goes.
Here goes.
And I'll just tell you right up front, it does.
Okay. Grab sucking judgment.
Back in 2010, I had a strange experience while driving back to the coast from Butte, Montana. On a quiet mountain road in central Washington state, I suddenly, and for no apparent reason, started crying because I was convinced my mother had died. I pulled over and the tears kept coming for a good 10 minutes. I took my GPS loudly resetting itself, again for no apparent reason, to snap me out of it, and I spent another 10 minutes trying to figure out what the hell had happened. Ordinarily, I'm not much of a crier. Anyways, I got myself together, kept driving, and put the whole thing behind me. Of course, my mother was fine. Nowadays, I live in Victoria, but I grew up in Revelstoke, and in 2012, got the idea to collect all of Revelstoke's paranormal history into a book. Surprisingly enough, or maybe not, depending on your opinion of the place, a lot of weird shit has happened there in the past 80 years, and because it's a pretty close-knit place, most of it doesn't get talked about when outside of town. Or talked about outside of town. Anyways, my plan was to drive, start researching in Revelstoke after visiting friends in Oregon, and because it's about halfway between the two places, I ended up overnighting in the Washington town of Omak. Since I started taking an interest in the paranormal, I decided to check out haunted places along the way, and sure enough, there was apparently a campground just outside of Omak on the Colville Indian Reservation. I got to Omak too late to go poking around in the woods, so instead I hit the laundromat and met a dude who knew the campground. He said the tribe had closed it to overnight campers, but he wasn't sure why. After I grabbed a room at the Roadway Inn in the middle of town and crashed. At about 2 a.m, I was jarred awake by what sounded like an air raid siren. It was the loudest goddamn thing I'd ever heard. Not only that, but it wouldn't stop. It went on for about 10 minutes. I thought the friggin' world was coming to an end. When I finally got a hold of the front desk, they said it was the fire department's alarm, but they had no idea why it was going on for so long. Eventually it stopped and I got back to sleep. The next morning I was so curious as to what happened that I went down to the police station, fire department, to ask, and it's a small enough town that the receptionist told me 2 campers parked next to the river had burned down. The receptionist had no idea why the siren went on for so long, though. In fact, she said that while her and her friends were growing up during the Cold War, they were taught that a prolonged fire siren was the emergency signal to let everybody know the Grand Coulee Dam had broken. That night in 2012, her and her husband were both a little concerned they should be putting on pants and heading for higher ground. We were getting along so well, I asked her about the campground, and she said the same thing. The tribe on the Colville Res had closed to overnight campers, but she didn't know why. Without me asking, she wrote the tribe's phone number on the back of an Omak PD business card. Eventually, I got to Revelstoke and started looking around. Right away, I learned that something we had been taught in school, that there were never any natives living in the Revelstoke area because of the unpredictable winters, was wrong, and that the Synchronicities people had been living up and down the Arrow Valley. Sometime in the 1800s, they were all rounded up and shuttled off to a reservation. That reservation was the Colville Indian Reservation. A year later, I was looking at some maps while plotting out another road trip, and I decided to look for the spot where in 2010 I had my little freak out. Wouldn't you know it, that quiet mountain road was smack in the middle of the Colville Indian Reservation. That Omak PD business card is still in my wallet. I never did call the band, but maybe I should. See where it goes. Anyways, thanks for reading and keep up the great work. My plan at the IRVA conference is to keep a running blog while I'm down there, so if you're interested, feel free to keep an eye on my site. Info is at the bottom of the email. Thanks again. That's from Brennan. Largely the Truth. The book is coming out next year, but I've left out those details because I didn't want my first email to show like a sleazy self-promotion. So anyways, thanks, Brennan, for the email and the synchronicity.
What's the website?
largelythetruth.com. You bet. I'll link to that in the show notes.
Give it a 5.5.
That's it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of an asshole.
No, why, really?
I don't know. It's just, yeah. Maybe he's a crier.
He's not a crier, he said.
You're a crier.
I never said I wasn't.
Bet you there was a time when he said you weren't.
People haven't heard that episode come out yet, actually. I was just going to read, that's what I was going to read to you earlier.
We've come back to it a few times, I think.
So anyways, don't you think that's a coincidence that the Colville Reservation, the Revelstoke, and the traveling around the road trip and...
Not feeling it.
No, you're not feeling it? Don't have any link to it being a
what?
A native?
No.
No, not at all.
Nothing.
Nothing, eh?
What do you got there? Your little postcard.
Well, this is kind of just going back. Well, anyways, I'll just finish off that segment there. Thanks, Brennan.
You have another one?
Well, no, I've got this. It's going back. It's just a note about that public space initiative episode we did recently.
Last week? No, the week before.
Yeah, this guy. This is a. Is this a tweet? No, that's not a tweet. Is this an email or
YouTube?
Or is that YouTube?
YouTube.
Is that what that's from? I forget to check YouTube. Probably a good thing. A lot of trolls there. So this is from Natalois. He says, I remember hearing Jay Wiedner talk about being in front of some investors.
Thin skin.
Oh my God.
Thin skin grab. I can't write it on the table because the table won't be here.
He says, I remember hearing Jay Wiedner talking about being in front of some investors. Jay was pitching the idea of sending a satellite to the moon and photographing it in HD, then playing the film in the cinemas and making money. They employed an ex-NASA guy to check the technical details to make sure it was possible/feasible. The ex-NASA guy rings up NASA and tells him of the plan. NASA tells him that they will shoot the rocket down and never call them again. And to never call them again. Until we remove the seat of power away from the military, this plan, it is a great plan, but it has no chance. There has been a base on the moon since 1959 using the anti-gravity tech. Remember that film Forbidden Planet from 1956? That is the year all the anti-gravity research goes black out of the mainstream. We need to remove the idiots in government, then we gain control of the financial system, stop the deliberate lack, then abundance. Well said. I like that. Makes sense to me.
Slow clap jingle. It's not the same.
It's not doing it?
No. Sounds like you're jerking off.
Fapping over the email?
You're fapping.
Oh, I should mention something. I want to give a shout out to one of our Twitter buddies who's driving. This should be you doing this. You want to do that?
Oh, you go ahead.
It's Iva. I have a Twitter account.
I have a Twitter account.
He's a Gulf War vet, 82nd Airborne, and he's doing a solo 10,000-mile motorcycle ride across the U.S. Oh, in support of AVA. Help me get the word out, guys. So yeah, we're getting the word out. I'll link to it in the show notes. And do you know anything about this?
No. I just seen it and retweeted it because it was a motorcycle.
Oh, I see. Anyways, this is a veteran trying to ride around 10,000 miles around the state. So wish him all the best. People can
fund him.
Help him out and fund him. Yeah.
There's a link here. You gonna link to it?
I'll link to it.
Nice work.
Yeah.
He's a pro. So yeah, the last show in the Igloo 2.0. This one was a little better. Hopefully the next one will be even better. Hopefully we're not shivering in winter.
Yeah.
It really is a running experiment.
Yeah. We could always use gas money. Have you run out of gas lately?
Not this week. I haven't gone back out on the bike since. I'm still gun shy.
We have gear acquisition syndrome here, and we need to pay for our monthly expenses and pay for our new studio.
Yeah.
We really didn't think this was going to happen. When we started up the podcast, it was like, oh yeah, we'll just talk via Skype with each other. And I had my little tiny headset over my mouth, and then all of a sudden it got all professional.
Here we are. And the fruits of our labor. So yeah, help us pay off our
bills.
Our bills, yeah.
Graham's credit has gotten us through so far.
Yep. Grimerica.ca/support. There's all sorts of different options there. Yeah, so
review the show too. That helps big time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got.
I've been putting the Stitcher review link in the show notes as well as the iTunes one.
Perfect. Even though I think Stitcher downgrades the quality, but
yeah, and they might even throw their own fucking ads in there or something like that.
If you're listening on Stitcher, just switch to the site.
Yeah.
But we'll have an app one day. Yeah. You should check
into that. But you can still
app.
review it on Stitcher. Just switch.
You should check out that app situation
Me?
if that's doable.
Me?
Yeah.
What app is that?
Our app.
Oh, our app. Well, yeah, I have.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
So yeah, support the show, grimerica.ca/support. I'm trying to drum up subscriptions for the next little while here, see if we can get some more. The monthlies really help, of course.
If we get to 50, then...
Psilocybus sequel.
Yeah.
Sign up for the newsletter, grimerica.ca/news.
Speaking of psilocybus, I did have some more feedback on the psilocybus. If you just,
People are still listening to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Renee had, he listened to it. It brought back memories for him. Sorry, Renee.
Rennie.
And this is from Not Morgan. Speaking of Not Morgan earlier, this is from Reflective Air podcast, which you actually like listening to, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're wrong.
There just needs to be more of them.
More of
There's
them.
not enough.
They're fascinated by how we get so much content out.
Yeah. Well, even if they can only record once a month or whatever, then they maybe even just split it up into 2 episodes. Try and be at least bi-weekly.
Yeah, I talked to him about that a little bit. It's challenging for them. Anyways, he says he realizes that I get picked on by your trickster.
I think they're onto
Tricksters.
something there. If they were more regular, then could be big.
All right, so another quickie. I listened to your psilocybus episode a couple weeks back, and that's our Enter the Mushroom episode. That goes back to over a year ago, before we started numbering the episodes. He said...
Before this studio, even.
He said, really funny, and it took me straight back to my own mushroom experiences. Me and some friends also tried to record the experience of a mushroom session many, many years ago now, and you did much better than us. Our whole tape just seemed to consist of me saying I can see squares, triangles, circles, etc., not particularly illuminating. Anyway, I felt like it showed Darren in a new light to me. He's funny as fuck, and I really enjoyed hearing his trip. I need to pee. Am I peeing? It's given me some ideas for a trip report jingle. So yes, please do. I'd love to have an Am I Peeing trip report jingle. Also, my girlfriend...
This is current.
American Trip Report.
I love that one too. That's good. Also, my girlfriend saw how much I enjoyed the episode and listened to it herself, all in one go. It was the first episode of yours she heard, and now she's a regular listener to you too. I was surprised to find that she hadn't listened to you before. When I asked her why, she said it was because of the name Grimerica. She apparently thought you'd be grimy and American. Little did she know we're Canadian. Ah, the little things that go on in ladies' minds.
No comment.
No comment.
That's nice feedback, though.
Hello there, Not Morgan's girlfriend. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. Grimy Americans are back in town. You look a little grimy sometimes.
I'm a grammacologist.
Are you? Like what you grew up wanting to be. Got anything else
That's
before
it,
we jump into our chat with Gordon?
No, that's it.
That's a good one. How old's Gordon again?
He's in his 90s, I think. That's a few guys we've had in their 90s so far.
Yeah.
We're doing good for that.
Paul
Okay.
Hellier's pretty old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's 3 or 4 guys we've had in their 90s, I think.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not, Sorry, Gordon, if you're younger than that. I don't know why I thought he was like 92 or something like that.
He's like 70.
Yeah.
You're just a dick. Wouldn't be the first time Graham got her wrong, but
Yeah.
usually pretty good.
He might be in his mid-80s, actually. I'll just backtrack a bit.
Backpedal a bit.
Backpedal
Just
a bit and say
expand
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, enjoy the chat with Gordon. It was a fun one. And I suppose we will be coming back at you in the outro. Okay, guys, in Grimerica tonight, we're going to be talking Alberta's own little Stonehenge, not far from the Igloo. I actually might head there Friday, if I can get there. I was actually going to ask Gordon about that. But first, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to this because we get to talk about our own province here. And we've got Dr. Gordon Freeman here, who's author of Hidden Stonehenge, Ancient Temple in North America Reveals the Key to Ancient Wonders. I didn't really know much about Gordon. A listener had forwarded us his information and saying, you guys got to have this guy on. He's amazing. And we've talked about ancient sites all over the world. So I bought Gordon's book. It's a fascinating book. It's one of these real heavy ones with glossy pages, lots of pictures. And we've been communicating ever since. So we finally got him on. Now, Gordon's discovered lunar and solar calendars at ancient sites right here in our backyard. Canada's Stonehenge predates the UK's and the Great Pyramids, and his great book is the result of 30-year quest to understand these ancient sites. So Gordon Freeman, Ph.D., is now Professor Emeritus at University of Alberta, and for 40 years he's been pioneering disciplinary studies in chemistry, physics, and human societies. Besides his academic credentials from 3 universities, he was chairman of physical and theoretical chemistry for 10 years and director of the Radiation Research Center for 30 years at the University of Alberta. So there's lots to talk about here. Gordon's got a wide range of expertise. So we're really looking forward to having you here. Thanks for joining us, Gordon.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to talk to local folks and people that have done all this research right in our backyard. Can you start off by just giving us a little synopsis of your book, and then we can start digging into some of the details?
Well, the synopsis of the book is kind of tough. A synopsis of that sun temple that my wife and I discovered. We were told that it was a medicine wheel on the highest hill in the region, and it turns out that it's a sun effigy, and the term medicine wheel is a white man's term, doesn't really mean anything, except to archaeologists, I guess. But when we found this thing, we found all kinds of other patterns of stones on that very hillside. And when on any of the pictures that I took from 1980, they don't really show so-called medicine wheels. All they show these other patterns looking up to the cairn on the top of the hill. And so when I asked archaeologists what are all these other patterns, they said, those stones were just where the glacier dropped them 10,000 years ago. The only stones moved by man are in the medicine wheel. So anyway, Mother Nature is a fascinating entity, but we thought that those piles of rocks, engineered arrangements of rocks at right angles, couldn't really come accidentally. So we started studying it in 1980, and I'm still making discoveries in 2015.
Wow.
So are we talking, obviously we're talking pre-Ice Age?
No, 5,200 years. The Ice Age it was over here 10,000 years ago. The ice sheet melting back up to the Arctic kept the rivers in high flood until 2008. But since about 8,000 years ago, and since 8,000 years ago, the Bow River has been pretty much where it is now,
right.
Low, just a part of the valley.
Right. So how far out of Calgary are we talking here?
About 150 kilometers, mainly east and some south.
Right.
Ooh, we're already 30 kilometers east.
Yeah, we're actually recording out of Chestermere. So.
Yeah.
You gave away the location.
Right, yeah. Well, anyway, the fascinating thing is that various reasons given in the book, we found a calendar there, a solar calendar, and with astonishing accuracy. I mean, so that you can date it to 5,200 years, plus or minus 200 years. I mean, the Stonehenge people, and with their age, should maybe 4,400 years, plus or minus 300-400.
Yeah.
But turns out that and most of the professionals, or maybe all the professionals, archaeologists and so-called archaeoastronomers, don't believe that Stonehenge has much of a calendar in it. But it has the same accurate calendar as ours here, and ours is about 800 years older than the Stonehenge one.
Wow. And this wasn't like an instant discovery, right? You guys spent years and years going back and forth in the summer and the winter. I mean, you guys were staying over in the snow, yeah?
Yeah, well, we've lived out there. If you add up all the separate days, it's about 250 days. I mean, it's equivalent of about 8 months, a little more.
Wow.
All seasons of the year. So we know some of those stones personally.
Have you had any strange experiences out there in the dark?
Well, strange is a pretty strange word, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing is strange to me. I don't know if it would be strange to somebody else. Mother Nature is fascinating. I mean, when I get down on my knees to make notes in my field notebook, cattle, if they're around, come up to wonder what I'm doing, and they come real close and they look at my book, and I don't know if they can read or not, but then when I stand up, they move back. When you're taller than they are, they move away. When you're shorter than they are, they come right up.
Yeah, and you also had some experiences with some other coyotes and some other animals kind of keeping an eye on you, right?
Yeah, well, my wife can't hear a coyote if it's almost next door. She can hear a bull bellowing from kilometers away, but a coyote has got to be real close. We described the one major incident with a coyote. We were down, 30 meters down a steep riverbank at a backside for the equal day night sunset, and taking measurements and photographs and so on. This is in the daytime, taking GPS and stuff. And we heard this coyote talking to somebody 2-3 kilometers away and across the river, and the other ones were answering. So there's a conversation. So I looked up, and here, 30 meters above us and not too many meters horizontal, was this enormous male coyote. And so it didn't know we were there. And so Phil moved away. She was frightened by that thing. And so she moved, and then it sensed us. And so then it went away. Well, our truck was 2 kilometers away. So Phil decided she's going to leave me down there to do what I want. She was going to walk back, maybe at a brisk pace, to the truck where she'd be safe. Well, she'd gone a couple of minutes, well, maybe 5. And I heard this terrible scream. So I went scrambling up the bank and running. The coyote tried to get friendly with her. So anyway, I took her back to the truck. I mean, when she screamed, the poor coyote was scared out of his wits, and then he ran away. So when I got up, there was no coyote evidence.
So this
and we've had incidents with bulls and things like that too. So there are a few things, but for a guy who was a fireman in his youth, these are just everyday experiences, I guess.
So this site that you're talking about, that you guys discovered, I guess you realized it was bigger than you thought, like spread out over a few different hillsides. Like,
well, we didn't know then, because we went there on the advice of a guy who I was pestering too much, and he wanted to get us out of town for a few days. So he drew us a map of 15 sites in southern and eastern Alberta where we should go, and we'd be really interested in it, he said. And everything was fine. I mean, not much, some other so-called medicine wheels and big cairns and things, and glyphed rocks. What they had said about the other things seemed okay, but this one had all these associated patterns of stones that nobody recognized. And so we thought that something, and anyway, when we started to go there to look for more things, we kept finding things more and more, and it grew out over the years until it covers about more than 12 sections of land. So I walked about at least 600 miles inside that 12 square miles.
Wow. So can you just describe a bit how you figure out that this is a solar calendar? Like, you obviously have to line it up with the backside or whatever, and you're watching for the sun, I guess the first flash and the last flash of the sun, for example?
Yeah, well, how it started was the ranchers called it the sundial. So ranchers 100 years ago must have had some kind of an inkling. It looks like a sunburst, I guess, so they call it a sundial, not a medicine wheel. And when we went there, the ranchers had built a fence that actually cut across one edge of the ring with a cairn in the middle of it. That's pretty careless. But anyway, farmers built fences normally north-south and east-west. So I thought that this was probably a north-south fence. I mean, I didn't have a compass with me. So I thought it was a north-south fence. And these three, call it an engineered set if you want, arrangements of rocks at right angles. If the fence had been north-south, these rocks would have been in the summer solstice sunrise direction, the summer solstice sunset direction, and the winter solstice sunset direction. And I thought, holy smoke, that sounds like a calendar to me. That was the first year we were there. So anyway, next time we went back, we took a compass. And the compass showed the fence to be going northeast, southwest. They built a fence following the river, and the river has got that direction at that point. So they were sort of dividing the rangeland so that on one side the cattle would go down to the river to drink, and the other side they would find sloughs to drink. They had dammed up a couple of creeks, and anyway, so that meant if this fence is northeast, southwest, those piles of rocks have got to be in the cardinal directions. Well, it's awful easy to find where the solstice sun rises and sets because it moves until it stops at that place and then moves back the other direction again. Mm-hmm. So it's real easy to find the solstice direction. It's not easy to find north and south and east and west accurately. So we thought, gee, if they've got the cardinal directions marked, which are harder than the solstices, they probably got the solstices here too somewhere if we know where to look. And so I took a compass to find possible alignments for first the summer solstice, because I didn't know how to get out there in the winter, rise and set. And the next year we found them. We started with, now we've got 36 of these things, but we found the first one. So we knew we were on the way. And then after some time, after some years, we thought, well, if they've got both winter and summer solstices marked, to get out there in the wintertime is much tougher. But
you obviously made an effort to document all of this in your book. Like, you've got pictures and diagrams, and you know, I get the feeling that you put all of your research into this book.
No, that was a hobby. I've got 450 publications of chemical physics.
No, I mean about this thing, of course.
Yeah, well, about this thing in that book, I'm writing now a 6-volume. There's so much. There's more than 10 times that much information in the 6-volume archival report that I'm writing.
Oh, wow.
I've got 4.5 volumes written so far. First 4 volumes are in the rare books collection at the University of Alberta and in the Glenbow Museum Library in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And might wind up in the Canadian Museum of History Library if they want it.
Wow. So, and that's all regarding the same topic?
The 6 volumes are all of the Majorville site.
Wow. Wow.
No Stonehenge in it at all. It's just a fascinating thing. I mean, right now I'm making so many discoveries. I commissioned an aerial survey with a tremendous accuracy. They photographed at 3,000 feet with a 1-foot focal length lens. And so these 10-inch by 10-inch negatives, the negative is the 1 to 3,000 scale. So my difficulty is to tell the difference between a cow pancake and a rock. It is really, really good. And now I'm scanning those in Zoom, and I'm discovering stuff that I had no idea existed there. So the whole thing is getting out of hand.
So tell us about the, I guess, the comparison to Stonehenge in the UK. You went and spent a lot of time over there. Yeah,
well, when we heard about the discussion of Stonehenge, whether it had a calendar or not, and all the modern professionals, I mean, they've been talking about a possible calendar there for 300 years, and for the past 50, 60 years, all the professionals decided, no, there's no calendar there. There's this accidental alignment with the summer solstice sunrise. But they were looking at it wrong. If there were a calendar, nobody looked at it right, because they're standing in the middle of this circle, this 30-meter diameter, 100-foot diameter circle, looking out between widely spaced rocks with 3 feet in between. They're standing 15 meters away from a 1 meter wide gap, and they say, "Oh well, you know, if they got a sunrise within 2 degrees, that's pretty good." The people out in Majorville, those lines are accurate to a 20th of a degree. Some of them to a 30th of a degree.
Huh.
So if you say it's 2 degrees is good enough, that's 40 times too sloppy. And so all the early work was just sloppy. And it turns out that the people who publish all this stuff are hand wavers. They take a few pictures and then they write a paper. And since they're in England, they live there, and who believes anything that the colonial says? We haven't made much progress over there. But it turns out that it has exactly the same solar and exactly the same lunar calendar. But the real surprising thing is, do you know whether this is a leap year or not? 2015?
It's not.
It's not. It's leap year plus how many?
Next year's a leap year.
Huh?
2016's a leap year.
So this is leap year plus how many?
Plus 3.
Right. So anyway, you know that, and hardly anybody else knows that. So we recognize leap years and not leap years. Out here, they've marked every single year in the leap year cycle. They go back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They go zip. And in Stonehenge, they do the same thing. And whether they emphasize the sunrise or the sunset on the equal day night, let you know whether the middle of their equal day nights is the winter solstice or the summer solstice. The calendar, the solar calendar at Majorville is focused on the winter. And Stonehenge, it's focused on the summer.
Wow.
It's exactly the opposite. So it makes me wonder, could they have done that? Would that likely have happened if there were no communications between the here and there? I mean, I like to think it's individual, separate development in the two places, but it's getting harder and harder because They emphasize the opposite things with the same calendars.
Well, you also discovered they were on the same 51 degree northern latitude as well, right?
There's still 51. Yeah, and that's magic because the moon wobbles by nearly 20 degrees back and forth. The sun is steady as the Earth goes around the sun, but the moon goes around the Earth, and the orbit's got a wobble in it. And it's got a 18.6-year cycle. The Earth wobbles a little bit too, but it's got a 26,000-year cycle, so we really don't notice that very much. It allows us to date the solstice lines out here, mind you, within 200 years. But the moon is a different thing. And I've forgotten where I was supposed to be going with that.
No, just on the coincidence of the latitudes. And
oh, yeah. Well, once in 1.6 years, the solstitial sunrise and moonrise, the full moonrise, where the full moon is opposite the sun, are differed by 90 degrees. The 90 degrees is a sacred angle because you've got to have something vertical to the Earth's surface if it's going to stand up for a long time, like thousands of years. The center of gravity has to be well over the points of support. So anyway, you can have a plumb bob over a surface of water, and that's a 90-degree angle. But for building going back many thousands of years, they've had to know what a right angle is, because that's, if you're going to build a vertical wall, it has to be right angles to stay up. So the right angle between the rises and then the sets of the sun and full moon being 90 degrees, that's a magical thing, and that happens at 91 degrees north latitude, and there's nobody living hardly at 51 degrees south. It would happen down there too, but it's mostly water down there, hardly anybody living.
So do you figure that either these civilizations were interconnected 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, or do you think this is maybe a sacred site from before then that they were built on top of, or what's your best guess?
Well, I don't like to speculate. I've dated this one to 5,200 years, a completed calendar. How many centuries it took them to get all that information, I don't know, but I imagine it's quite a few centuries, because it would go, build for over generations. There's always a young man. There's always a young nerd to tag along with an old nerd, so this stuff is not that hard to pass along. But in Stonehenge, it's more foggy. The actual big stones were put up about 400 years ago. But the circle and ditch, the ditch and bank at Stonehenge, were roughly the same age as here, maybe a little younger. Excuse me. And there was a sun temple in Preseli Mountain in southwestern Wales that Phil and I have discovered, and that some Englishmen have been studying for a long time, that dates about the same as ours here. Now, nobody has done the calendar measurements at Preseli Mountain, but I've recommended that in the book. It might have the same kind of calendar right there, the same age as this one.
Is there any place else on the planet that you're aware of that kind of seems to have the same signature?
Is there what?
Any place else on the globe that has sort of the same signature as the one in Alberta and the one in Europe?
Well, I wouldn't. There are probably quite a few of them, but I don't know about them, because even Stonehenge hasn't been studied as thoroughly as the Majorville site in this aspect. There have been 1,000 books written about Stonehenge, but most of them are repetitive.
Right.
And archaeologists, they dig things up. They destroy sites. And so there's a limited amount of digging gone on Stonehenge. There's a limited, much more limited set of digging that's gone out at our place, but Phil and I haven't dug anything. We've just used a tripod, camera, GPS, measuring tape. We haven't disturbed anything. And so I think archaeologists eventually will adopt some of our techniques.
Is there any photos available of Stonehenge that are as accurate as the ones you've got of Majorville?
No, just mine, just the ones you see in the book.
Yeah. Hey,
just all of the really crucial photographs, accurate photographs of Stonehenge are actually in the book. I mean, I've got 1,300 photographs of Stonehenge, but
yes.
A lot of them were like clouded over and failed attempts.
Yeah, that's the problem up there. I mean, maybe the climate was way nicer back then when they were actually building these.
Oh yeah, well I think so because 6,000 years ago the prairies were so hot that hardly anybody lived here. There are not many artifacts on the plains from 6,000 years ago, so people figured they moved to the mountains where it was cooler.
Huh.
And then they came back roughly 5,000 years ago.
Hey, you mentioned sections of land. What is is 12 sections of land? Can you say that in acres? What is that in acres?
I think a section is a square mile.
Well, yeah, 1 square mile, and 640 acres is one section.
640 square acres is a section?
640 acres
is a section. Okay. Huh.
So if you're into kilometers, it's roughly a little more than 30 square kilometers.
Okay.
And I recommended that the government do something to protect 25 or 30 sections of land. They might eventually do that. Wouldn't people understand that this is a sacred site, that there's no equal to it in the world?
Well, you've already made progress on protecting it to a certain extent, right?
A little bit, yeah. But I'm not supposed to talk about it. So.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Can I
We don't
head
want to
out
steal
there?
anybody's thunder.
Oh, I see. Oh, boy.
We don't want to steal any. It takes government a long, long time to do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm really hopeful for this. So,
Except for tax.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Is it open access? Like, could I head out there?
Yeah. But you should always phone. I haven't got this number at home. You should the manager of the Lomond Grazing. Maybe you can find on the internet Lomond Grazing. Lomond is a village. You probably know about that. That's south of Bassano by 40, 50 miles.
Okay.
And they have a grazing company that leases, I don't know, 50 sections of land down there from the government. That's crown land for grazing cattle. And you should always get permission from the leaseholder before you go on the land. So the man's name and his phone number, I've got it in my big report, but I got a bad memory, so...
That's okay, we can look it up.
I don't know it now.
We'll look it up.
Maybe I'll head down there on Friday.
Yeah.
Lomond Grazing, yeah. And just ask for the lease manager.
Okay.
So who do you attribute it to? I mean, 5,000-6,000 years ago, we should be assuming that there's no one here except for natives?
No what?
Nobody living in Alberta other than Native Americans?
Well, the artifacts, like what you can tell, what kind of people, we don't know what kind of people, we don't know what they look like, because archaeologists, they name artifacts after the nearest post office, like Oxbow, the oldest projectile points in the bottom of this cairn are named Oxbow because they were first dated from charcoal and points found near Oxbow, Saskatchewan. I mean, Oxbow is a little hamlet in Saskatchewan, and they got named so. But anyway, there are 5,000 years spread of artifacts in that. Most of these 60% of them are now in the University of Calgary Archaeology Department. But there's no major change in style. There's a gradual drift. So there's no reason for me to believe that the people who built that looked any different from the Cree or the Blackfoot or the Sioux or the Lakota or anybody like that. I think Plains Indians were Plains Indians, and they moved around a lot. And when the white man came in on the East Coast, he chased a lot of them west. And so for the last 200 years, there's been rearrangement. I mean, Blackfoot used to... They possessed, if you want to call it that, the hunting rights in the Edmonton area. But as the Cree got pushed west, the Blackfoot got pushed south. So now the dividing line is somewhere around Red Deer.
What do you think about the way we name our roads? And like, because you've been sort of dealing with this for decades now, and obviously how the culture was destroyed, and I mean some of it's left, like the area that you're researching here. But what do you think about, like, we just had a ring road made here, and we name it Stony Trail, and then we have Blackfoot and Deerfoot. Is that like? Do you think that's like an insult or like an actual sort of?
I don't know how
tribute to them.
I doubt if it's a white man making a tribute. Maybe the tributes will start coming in because of this healing thing that came down today from Ottawa. I think that'll get put on the shelf like all the other ones, but maybe this one, maybe my books will help to actually get people to do something in reconciling with the Indians. I mean,
besides naming stuff after them?
Well, I don't know whether Redskins was a hockey team or a baseball team or some kind of sports team. I think that that's offensive. Whether Stony Trail is offensive, I don't know. You'd have to ask an Indian. But if he was offended in the least, it should be changed.
What do you think, Darren?
I'm not that kind of Indian, so if it was Ojibwe Trail, then I might have a problem with that.
Oh, that's funny. So I wanted to ask you before I forget too about Stonehenge, because since you were there and you were looking for these like back sites, and you were probably exploring it similar to the way you explored the breadth of the Majorville wheel or the Majorville site. Have you wondered about, or did you realize that there was more to Stonehenge than there was officially thought? Like recently, like last fall, they came out with that big ground penetrating radar revealed Stonehenge was much bigger than thought, and you were probably all over that before, were you?
Yeah, well, I've been preaching that since I've been preaching that for 30 years over there, and finally they're doing something, so that's a good thing. And they never heard of me, so at least they pretend. So
well, they might have read your book.
Yeah, but they don't recognize. I don't care about that. The thing is that they're getting the idea. And if these guys were standing in the middle, looking 15 meters away at a 1 meter wide gap, it was impossible. So I went over there knowing that if there were going to be any lines of any accuracy, you'd have to stand outside the circle, look through the whole structure, find a crack in the right direction. It's a narrow crack, maybe, I don't know, a fifth of a degree wide or something, and that would have to be the alignment. So we went over looking for that. In fact, I had an idea back in the 80s that if there were a calendar there, there's got to be some kind of a foresight a kilometer away from the circle.
Right.
Well, I got permission to go in. I was going to go to a conference in the spring of '89 in North England. And so I corresponded that whole winter with people of English heritage, and I signed my life away and paid them a lot of money to get in when there's nobody else there except the guard. No tourists or anything. Early morning, late evening, you can go in. They call it special access. And I did that, and I was in there about 3 minutes before I found the winter solstice sunset foresight, 900 meters away, looking through cracks, still standing on the northeast side, looking through the cracks. There's the groin, if you want, of a mound and the horizon. And I thought, well, all the talk is about the summer solstice and the winter summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset is the winner.
Mm.
And so I tried to get one of the guardians, who was a photographer also, to do the winter solstice sunset photography. Well, he tried 2 years in a row, and he was fogged in both times, and so he wouldn't give me any more time. So I had to wait until I retired. It was forced retirement up here in my era in 1995. And nobody wants to retire, but at least I had December free. So my wife and I went over there in December 95, and sure enough, there was where the sun came down is exactly where it was on the diagram I had sent to the guardian, who was going to photograph it for me if he could see it. It was astonishing. So anyway, we've been there, 15 or more times, 4 days in a row is what I have, morning and evening access. And yeah, it was really good. The guardians, they don't get paid all that much money. So they're on that job because they love the place. Archaeologists, they get paid to make wise statements. So archaeologists fight us tooth and nail, but the guardians were really helpful.
Hmm.
And so that was lucky. I mean, I couldn't have done some of the stuff that I did if the guardians hadn't helped me sail very close to the wind.
That's interesting. So I wonder, I wanted to talk to you about KNP, but I also want to keep going on Stonehenge for a while there. You realized, I learned something reading your book about the equinoxes. I've always thought that it was the same day and everywhere, kind of like, I guess I was misinformed about the equinoxes. And then when I read your book, I realized how different, depending on where you are, the actual equal day, equal night is.
Yeah, well, it's latitude dependent. And that means, in the old days, when Christianity got going, they dated Easter. It was related to Passover, right? So, in fact, in every language but English and German, it's called Passover. But and that's a spring thing. And because of the uncertainty of the so-called equinox, there was trouble in finding the date for Easter. And then in 1470 or so, when the Portuguese started to sail south of the equator, sailors sail by the sun and the stars. And so they go by the stars. They live the sky. The sky is a living thing. And so they would know that equal day night is latitude dependent. Well, when they were actually when people were publicizing what these folks were finding when they're sailing to South Africa, the date of Easter becomes a problem because Jesus only resurrected once, and so how can you have him latitude dependent when he resurrected? So popes for 100 years, I think about 10 popes and their advisory councils of bishops and cardinals, and they had astronomers. They were trying to do it right. But for 100 years, they wouldn't agree. I guess if the astronomers had their way, there would be some upset in the order of religious festivals and so on. And Easter is the anchor time, because the resurrection is what Christianity is all about. So anyway, along comes this guy, and then when the Council of Trent was going on, they went on, I don't know, nearly 10 years. They were fighting and telling what Christians should do, but they couldn't fix the calendar. So the Pope, I don't remember his name, heard of this hotshot lawyer in Bologna. One, I can't remember his name anyway, turned out to be a good arguer, and so the Pope made him his delegate to the Council of Trent. And then, to give him more impact, he appointed him a bishop. And you didn't have to be a priest to be a bishop. Your lawyer could be a bishop. So he was just appointed a bishop. Well, I guess he was still making good progress in his arguments, and so to increase his influence more, the Pope appointed him a cardinal. But you've got to be a priest to be a cardinal, so he just appointed him a cardinal priest. And so it went on. So anyway, a few years, 5, 6 years later, when the Pope died, this appointed cardinal priest was elected Pope Gregory the 13th. And he'd been in all these arguments, Council of Trent, trying to fix the calendar. So he just decided to legislate it. I'm not going to explain to you, I'm just going to tell you. And so on October the 5th, October the 5th in 1582 will become October the 15th. So they just cut 10 days out of the calendar. But it turns out that the actual calendar, which was the Julian one that had been going since Julius Caesar, who got it from Cleopatra when he was shagging Cleopatra, he slipped 3 days. He cheated by 10 days. The calendar was 13 days out of whack, and Gregory the 13th took 10 days out. Well, what did this do? It made the so-called equinox, equinoctium, the date when the sun was directly above the equator. Well, if the sun is directly above the equator, there's no more latitude dependence. And that would have been fine if he changed the name. It's not equinox. There is never an equinox on the equator. The day is always 7 minutes longer than the night on the equator, year round. So anyway, what he did was keep the name equinoctium. And there were no dictionaries back in 1582. No, not popular ones anyway, not widely available ones. So he defined equinox when as the day, 2 days of the year, when the length of the day and the night are equal everywhere on Earth. Why would he bother everywhere on Earth? Well, because Easter should be separated, should be celebrated the same day everywhere on Earth. It had to do with the dating of Easter everywhere on Earth. So if he had only called it sun above the equator, or some name I've given it in my book, that would have been fine. But he called it the equinox, and so every European language defines equinox according to his Pope Gregory's definition. And it turns out that definition is physically impossible. And nobody tumbled to that until we couldn't find an equinox line out at the Majorville site. But we found accurate lines for sunrise and set 3 days before the spring equinox, 3 days after the fall equinox. That's symmetry. It probably means something. So I go to the U.S. Naval Almanac at the library, look up for the latitude and longitude of our Majorville site, and by darn, exactly 3 days before in the spring and 3 days after, that's the 12.0 hour day and night. So the true equal day night was discovered at the Majorville site. First time in the world. First time in the world.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Anyway.
No, that's fascinating. Is that how you stumbled across them being on the same latitude as well?
No.
Okay, you already knew that. Yeah.
I already knew that from reading.
Yeah. Huh. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about kinetics of non-homogeneous processes as well, because it's
of non-homogeneous processes. Non-homogeneous. If you say homogeneous, that's like saying kilometer. I ask, how many kilograms of potatoes did you buy? Whoever buys a kilogram of potatoes. So it's kilogram and it's kilometer, and it's non-homogeneous.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you for that. No, but some of the most interesting guests we have on are into multidisciplinary studies. They're not just focused on one little thing, and that's kind of what I found fascinating with you too. Is you got into all these different things, and but I've never heard it described as kinetics of non-homogeneous processes before.
No, well, nobody had. So when I published a book with that title in 1987, they had non-homogeneous. They had to make up a word for that in German and in Japanese, lots of languages. It turns out to be an unusual word, but it now exists in Japanese and Chinese and German and French.
So you added words to some dictionaries. Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us about that then. What is it like? Is it sort of structure out of chaos type thing, or is it?
That's part of it. That's not. Yeah, everything homogeneous means everything is equally distributed in space.
Okay.
Non-homogeneous means that somewhere there is it's not the same. So everything in nature is non-homogeneous. Because there's random motions. Atoms are moving, molecules are moving, wind goes in gusts and that kind of stuff. So everything is nature. In nature is non-homogeneous, and it's a new way of. You can't use textbook chemical kinetics to explain this stuff. You can't teach this to second and third year kids, and so textbooks. Well, you can't teach it to some professors either, but textbooks have got to take an oversimplified view of things to be able to teach it. And so, in fact, chemical kinetics that I taught for 30 years and to university students was really a gross approximation. But in my radiation research, the distribution of reactive species, and when you radiate something with gamma rays or high energy electrons or something like that, the active species are produced along a particle track. That's really non-homogeneous. So I had to invent my own kind of mathematics to deal with that. And it works like a charm, but not too many people around the world have caught it up, because an American working with a Dutchman discovered a way that was not bad. It wasn't as accurate as mine, but it was awful easy to use as an equation. I mean, there was no backing. There was no reason for the equation except that it gave fairly good results, good enough. And so that's what nearly everybody uses. But non-homogeneous processes, once you start to apply, it becomes a mindset. Once you start thinking about that, everything is beautiful. Even agony is beautiful because it's non-homogeneous. When you start to wonder about these things, it's pattern recognition is the strongest tool.
I was just going to say that.
Learning to understand complex systems, whether it's things in society, whether it's why did white men build these residential schools and then steal children and put them in there? I mean, that's a very complex system. But if you look for patterns of how people have behaved toward defeated peoples throughout history, that's what they do. So it gives you a handle on it. It shows how, well, a few of my graduate students have become very wealthy people. And one of my things about non-homogeneous processes is that if you haven't got a clean mind, if you're not ethical in everything you do, or along what you're doing in your research, and you can't extrapolate it. So to do a piece of research that will last for 100 years, you've got to have a clean mind. So ethics is big in my
study.
Preaching.
Yeah.
I got into a lot of trouble from presidents of universities for that. But anyway, 3 of my very wealthy students, former students, have told me, each of them, that ethics and great success in business are not compatible.
Wow.
And you can apply that to why people built residential schools and did cultural genocide. And the Japanese did it. The Chinese did it. The Spaniards did it. The Englishmen did it. The Nazis tried to do it. The Germans. World War II.
So he's saying that's a global phenomenon, not just a North America kind of Western culture thing. It's a global thing, and it's
global.
Wow.
It's part of human nature. The human is a very ugly animal if you don't train it to be decent. That's why kids who are not getting the parental attention that they need are killing other kids and so on. I mean, every one of the teenage murderers, you go back, they started off in England, and then Columbine in the United States brought it to everybody's consciousness. I've been following it for a long time. The one in Tabor, every one of those murdering teenagers had insufficient parental guidance. So it's all pattern recognition. And this is why I'm really hopeful that people won't go to sleep on what happened today in the Parliament.
Today? As in today?
Today, yeah, with the healing and whatever they call it, reconciliation report. They had a Métis judge. I'm very bad at names, but anyway, for 6 years he's been gathering information from residential school survivors.
Oh, okay.
And he's released a report. The government released it today with 90-some recommendations. Well, such a large number of recommendations, you know where the government's going to put that. But maybe things like my book will help us enter the white consciousness.
Yeah.
And make things less bad.
Definitely. So how did you, when you started this research and you realized that you're going to be going against the mainstream, was that a concern to you? Or like, how did you, I always I'm always fascinated by people like yourself who completely go against the stream and how that battle goes. Like most of you seem to just not really give a shit and you just sort of do what you know is sort of right and you don't really care about the blowback.
We're loners. You've got to be a loner. If you cared what anybody else thought, you wouldn't do any of this stuff. So if you're a loner by nature, and I happen to luck into the most magnificent woman I've ever seen, who married me. But I mean, I was 19. Maybe I'm in pattern recognition for all my life. I don't know where it starts. But when I was 19, I was a summer student. I was at the University of Saskatchewan for 5 years. And anyway, I applied for a summer job at the experimental. I was a farmhand as a kid, right? So got the experimental farm in Swift Current. And a form came back from the government. If you were offered a job someplace else, would you take it? I said, sure. I said, do you know how to run an outboard motor? I had never seen an outboard motor, but I had taken apart tractor engines, and so I said, sure. I thought I could learn an outboard motor in a couple of minutes. And I was offered a job at Experimental Farm in Ottawa. Well, fine. So when I went down in May of 1950, the water was just right up to the ties under the bridge going across the Red River in Winnipeg. That was the big flood. And anyway, I met a girl. The hardest thing I've done in my life was to come back to Saskatoon and leave her behind in Ottawa. Huh. And so going down there the next summer, they put me in a different lab, more research this time. But halfway through, I just decided I'm not going to do that again. I mean, that's hard. I have never done anything like that, and that really tore me. I wrote to her every single day. She's 7 days in a week, and there's only mail delivery 6 days a week in those days. And so some days she'd get 2 letters, and I guess her father commented on this. What kind of a guy is he write you two letters in a day? Anyhow, halfway through the next summer, it was a sort of like a 5-month thing in those days. Universities for farm communities were a 7-year thing, 7-month thing. So I told her, if you don't marry me, come back to Saskatoon, I'm going to quit university. I was 20. If you're not 21, you got to get permission from your parents to get married. And I knew damn well my mother would have a fit. I would never get. But my birthday is in 27th of August. So I thought, fine. This university doesn't start till the 15th of November. So, the 15th of September. So we'll just wait. And then we just send a letter. We're going to get married on the 8th of September, 1950. And please come. And that's what we did. And I don't know how, but I just lucked into the most fantastic woman that I ever met. And so she's been with me on all this stuff. And she knew about family thing and the needs of children. So I published things, and I've got into trouble for that too, about K&P and society. But it took me 10 years to learn what my wife knew by her nature. It's just astonishing. And anyway.
Well, that sounds like a study of K&P too, right? For her.
It is K&P. It is K&P. Pattern recognition. But where it comes from, I don't know. But if you care what anybody else thinks, I mean, I obviously didn't care what my parents think. So this beautiful lady that I'm quitting university unless you marry me. I didn't care what my parents thought. I was just going to quit. That's it. And she did, fortunately. And all this has happened since. But this thing about understanding families, she was I can't say she was my teacher. By talking to thousands of students, I mean, I had a patient ear, and so students, even who weren't in my courses, would come when they had a problem. I can't say she was my teacher. We've got an interference there. And they would tell me their problems, and I would never advise them. I would just ask them questions until they solved their own problem. And but then when I would go and talk it over with my wife, she knew that already. Anyway.
Must be something about those Saskatoon. Must be something about those Saskatoon women. I've got a long distance relationship with this woman from Saskatoon myself.
Yeah.
So I kind of know how you feel.
It's a great place. Yeah.
That's funny. So one question about ley lines, because that always seems to come up with these ancient sites. I noticed you mentioned in your book about the water, like they're both close to rivers.
Yeah.
Did you notice any similarities with this this one here in Alberta with ley lines at all, or some sort of underground aquifers?
There's usually water to the east of these sacred places. I've had a lot of people communicate with me about ley lines, but that's a diversion. I mean, you really have to specialize, or you just get spread so thin that you don't have any impact. And so I have casual interest in ley lines. I don't believe or disbelieve their power. And if people believe in them, that's fine with me. I just don't want to get involved in the discussion because it would be a distraction. I've got more to do in analyzing photographs and writing about the Majorville site than I'll have years left to work on. So
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
ley lines. Yeah, I mean, when the first book came out, I had a lot of people corresponding about ley lines, but because I didn't really participate, it fell off. But I still occasionally get letters about ley lines.
Yeah.
So there must be something there. And dowsing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I used to be able to dowse when I was 17, 16. There was a guy, a bachelor near Salvador, Saskatchewan, who, if somebody couldn't find a well on their farm or even in the village in their yard, he'd bring him in and he'd walk with a steel crowbar and tell them where to drill and whether they had to drill 20 feet or 35 feet. He never had a dry hole.
Wow.
So I asked him, he showed me how to do it. He says, well, we can't show you how you're going to do it or not. Anyway, so he took me to some place and had me blindfolded and all these kind of testing things. And it turned out I could dowse. I could witch for water. And when I went before I went to university, I had a ruptured appendix. And springtime Saskatchewan, the gravel highways washed out, the railways washed out. And this kid's got appendicitis 30 miles from an unavailable hospital. So anyway, I was there 3 days, and the thing was ruptured for 2 days before they restored the rail line. And when I recovered from all that, about a year later, I tried to witch for water, and it wouldn't work. So
that's
my
crazy.
mind is completely open about witching for water. I know it works for some people, and it used to work for me, but whatever happened with nearly kicking the bucket with all that peritonitis and so on didn't work anymore. So
I like that water witch. I'm gonna call on. We know a dowser.
You know about that?
No, we know somebody who does it.
Yeah.
Are you talking about John Ward? Or?
Yeah.
I've never talked to him about that.
I've watched his YouTube video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
How it could work, I don't know. But
only with an appendix.
99.999% of what's available, I don't know. So that's just another thing that I don't know. I accept it, but I don't understand it.
That's a healthy attitude to have. We actually try and have that attitude here. Lots of I don't knows and lots of open-minded acceptance.
Oh yeah.
So, is there anything else that you think that you want to mention to people before we start wrapping it up?
Oh God, I don't know. What else can you ask?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered it all. I mean, we're going to link to your book here, in the show notes, and this thing will come out and go around the world in a couple of weeks. So yeah,
well, that's good. And just realize that every race has got its genius. Genii created that site down there between 5,000 and 6,000 years ago. It must have taken centuries to develop it.
Yeah.
There's genius still amongst the Indian people, they like to be called Indians, not First Nations and all this kind of stuff. It's like one of the elders said, you people came here and you called us Indians and those animals buffalo. Now you want to change the names. I don't want to change the names. So I call them Indians, I call them buffalo. So Indians contain as much, they possess as much genius as the Asians, the Europeans, the Africans, whatever. This is something I hope people will absorb.
Yeah, that's well said.
I like Indian too.
Right on. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, Gordon.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Good luck with it.
Yeah, it was a great chat, and thanks for all your dedicated research, and good to have you guys. You guys, you probably would call yourself a nerd, a curious nerd, and it's good that we have you guys around.
Nerds are everywhere forever.
Right on. Okay, thanks a lot, Gordon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. And welcome back to the show. What'd you think, Darren?
That was a good one.
Did you have a good time with that
Yeah,
one?
that was a good one.
Yeah.
I need to go check it out.
Check out what? Our local Stonehenge?
Our local Stonehenge, yeah.
The dedicated research, the decades of research this guy put in, man. You should see the pictures in his book. The snow.
The book is fucking amazing.
You've been browsing it, eh? Yeah.
You could just sit through it and fucking sift through the pictures for days. It's like high quality.
Yeah, it's very good. And its kind of theme is similar to a lot of our other shows, guys like Robert Schock. And these guys that have put forth theories that kind of buck the mainstream, and they've been just battling. They don't really care what people think, and they just battle away. A good fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try and get out there for sure. Maybe I'll do that in the Okotoks erratic in one day. Then that night I'll make a crop circle.
But you got to plan on traveling off road, like basically 18 clicks or something like that. Like it's a long ways. Yeah, it's like off the. I don't think you can just drive up a dirt road to it. Like it's out there. That one listener that suggested we had Gordon on, from Hardwood Floors, he said he tried to find it once. He couldn't find it. He went out there looking. So we should get in contact with him and maybe go out on a little hunt for it.
Yeah.
We can report it. We'll record a podcast. I got the digital
thingamajig.
The digital thingamajig, and we can add the microphones and just drive and do it while we're there. Yeah, we'll go for a sunset. Maybe go for June 21st.
That's in that's Father's Day.
What is it?
Yeah,
but that's the
solstice. Could be tough.
Sunset. Oh, come on! Everybody's in bed. The sun sets at like 10 o'clock that night.
So it's still pretty late to drive down and hike 18 kilometers.
You don't have to hike. You can drive. It's just off-road. Like, we could take your car.
My car off-road. We'll take the bike. You can ride on the back.
That's not a bad idea.
That's a terrible idea. Anyway, we'll see. Not on the solstice, but we could still get out there at some point. Maybe.
Well, we're not doing it in the winter, so it's, the summer.
We can just fucking go there.
We'll go there and skywatch at the same time.
Sure.
Okay.
Aren't you always skywatching?
I try.
Looking around skywatcher?
I try.
Perfect. Yeah, we'd like to thank Gordon for coming on the show. I don't think you'll find him anywhere on any social media, but you can definitely pick up the book. And, yeah. You can support the show, as always. Help us pay the bills. Grimerica.ca/support. Buck a show is all we ask.
Oh, yeah. Can you, we didn't say this in the intro, but Spam Graham, I'd like to hear your we like to interact with the listeners, right? And make it sort of, and a lot of people seem to enjoy that. And we're not just talking about news stories and shit like that. So send in your experiences, whether that's your trip report, UFO sightings, synchronicities, lucid dreams, precognitive shit.
Absolutely. And I will rate that shit. Speaking of which, speaking of support, I think next show we'll put together a list of our supporters and rifle that off. You know who you are.
Thanks for supporting.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next week.
The landlords put the fences up a long time ago. They robbed us all, as everybody knows. But some things can't be controlled. Don't mess with the standing stones. Stonehenge is alive and strong, it's no ancient ruin. Don't mess with the standing stones, you don't know what you're doing. Stonehenge is alive and strong, it's no ancient ruin. Don't mess with the standing stones, you don't know what you're doing. Out of your concrete cities, out of your concrete mines, out of your control, a festival unwinds. Some things can't be controlled, don't mess with the standing stones. In summer 1985, we came to keep Stonehenge alive. Sticks and stones can break our homes, but you don't know what you're doing. In summer 1985, we came to keep Stonehenge alive. Sticks and stones can break our homes, you don't know what you're doing. Where do you go in the summertime when the air is sweet and the sun is high? Where's the holiday you can take if you're on the dole, not on the make? And we all know, and they all know, we never messed with the standing stones. Stonehenge is free, it won't be owned, it's no dying ruin. English heritage, go to hell, you don't know what you're doing. Stonehenge is free, it won't be owned, it's no dying ruin. English heritage, go to hell, you don't know what you're doing. This time they went too far, what fools the landed gentry are. Stuff your razor wire down your throat, wash it down with a £5 note. Stonehenge won't be controlled, don't mess with the standing stones. The police smash, the police break, the police made a big mistake. The power is ours for us to take, and we know what we're doing. The police smash, the police break, the police made a big mistake. The power is ours for us to take, and we know what we're doing. The police smash, the police break, the police made a big mistake. The power is ours for us to take, we know what we're doing. Police smash, police break, police made a big mistake. Power is ours for us to take, we know what we're doing. Police smash, police break, police made a big mistake. Power is ours for us to take, we know what we're doing.
Salisbury Plain in southern England.